My name is John Dempsey and I work for 8 Ounce Coffee. I'm an account manager based in Montreal, Quebec, and I work in the Eastern Canada region. However, I am a huge tea fan. I would even say maybe a tea geek. Today, I wanted to go over some of my favorite ways to brew tea and to share some recipes with you all, and to make sure that you're aware that even though we are 8 Ounce Coffee, we actually are, as a team, enthusiastic about tea. We actually work with a lot of amazing tea companies across Canada, and we sell a lot of incredible tea accessories. So why don't we just dive right in and drink some delicious tea together. So firstly, I'm gonna start with a recipe to make cold steeped tea. Now, as we speak, we are basically in the beginnings of the winter here in Canada. However, I love drinking iced tea all year round. And it's arguably one of the easiest ways to make tea. Simply put, we're just adding cold water and our delicious hojicha Japanese tea, putting it in a brewer device, and we're putting this in the fridge, letting it steep for 12 hours to as long as 24 hours, and that's it, you're done. It's very simple. It's water, tea, and time. I love brewing tea hot as well, and especially during those cold winter months, and we'll get on to some of the recipes later. So let's jump in. I have my water. I've got my beautiful Japanese hojicha tea, which is provided to us by Matsukaze, which is a Japanese tea brand based actually here in Calgary. And what we're gonna do is use a ratio today. So much like baking, you're working with ratios for your recipe. When you brew tea, I wouldn't say that it's necessary to adhere to a precise ratio, but it definitely helps to get repeatable results. We can achieve that by using a scale so that we're measuring the amount of tea we're using as well as the water. And we actually use ratios a lot in coffee brewing. So some of those same principles cross over into the tea world. However, if you're happy just adding a spoonful of dry leaf to your brewing vessel and just adding some hot water and you're content with those results, go with that and lean into it. It's going to be easier, and if you can brew intuitively and be happy with that result, then that's great. But for today's recipe, we're gonna be very controlled, if you will, with our variables. So I have this gorgeous Hario Mizudashi cold steeping brewing device for making our tea today. I'm going to remove the lid, and then we have here the brewing chamber, which is basically a fine mesh screen. And what we're going to do is tear our scale and take our tea. So we have weighed out exactly 8 grams of tea. Now we're working with a ratio of 80:1. So for every 1 gram of tea leaves, we're going to use 80 grams of cold filtered water. The water is very important because much like filter coffee, tea is mostly water, quite obviously. So it's quite important to use a filtered water, maybe a carbon filter if you can. Using chlorinated water from the tap will do the trick, but you're not gonna get quite as nice of a result. So I'd highly recommend using some nice filtered water. So I'm gonna take the brewing chamber and place it back into the brewing vessel. Gonna place the brewing vessel on our scale, tear the scale, and now we're going to add 640 grams of water. So I actually went over by 1 gram. I've got 641 grams. That's okay. If you're a little bit under, a little bit over, it's really not gonna make a big difference. And as I said earlier, if you want to go about brewing your tea more intuitively, that will give you a nice result as well. So at this point, what I would do then is place my tea in the fridge, and I would leave it for as long as 24 hours and maybe as short as 8 hours. The sweet spot for me typically is about a 12-hour steep, which is going to give me a nice result. With the magic of TV, we have here some tea that we did a cold steep last night with. This is the same beautiful Japanese hojicha tea. So let's have a taste. So good. It's very sweet, and because it's such a long steep, the body is a bit more viscous. It's unctuous, it's round, it's very clean, it's just refreshing. I could drink this all day. Because it's a hojicha tea, you're getting some of that green tea characteristics, but also a bit of an earthiness to it. It's so good. This is one of my favorite ways to brew tea, and it's so, so easy. Now let's move on to brewing tea the more traditional way, which is brewing tea hot. And I think that during this cold time of the year in Canada, everyone looks forward to a nice hot beverage. We're going to move on to one of my other favorite ways to brew tea, which is the handy brew. This is made out of a BPA-free plastic, and it has a removable filter in the bottom here. And the way it works is you add your tea in your water, you do your steeping, and then you place it on top of your vessel, and it has a release valve, and it's going to allow you to decant into any vessel you choose. We're using the exact same ratio, 80:1. So let's go with 2 grams of tea. So I'm going to use my scale. Again, if you want to brew your tea intuitively and eyeball it with a spoon, that's going to work just as well. So I'm using a fellow EKG Pro kettle, which has just been released. This kettle allows me to get the precise temperature. However, if you're brewing tea at home, again, you can do this intuitively, and you can use any way you're going to boil water, whether that's using a pot on the stove, whether that's going to be a traditional big box store style kettle. Those are going to work just as well. However, if you want to be very precise and get repeatable results, we highly recommend using a variable temperature, electronically controlled kettle such as this. And that, again, is going to allow you that degree of control and precision that you might not get otherwise. With that said, I'm using 85 Celsius water. And again, I'm using some nice filtered water, which is going to give you a really tasty cup of tea. So I've got my 2 grams of tea, and now I'm going to tare the scale. And I'm going to add my water. So that's going to be 160 grams of water. So today I've been using the Timemore Black Mirror Nano Scale, which quite obviously is allowing me to weigh my tea, but also to time. It has a built-in timer. So I steeped this tea very quickly for 30 seconds. And now it can decant with the handy brew because of this incredible opening valve. So I've got my tea, and now it's time to enjoy. Let's have a taste. Delicious. It's very caramelly, and much like the cold version, it's going to give you that kind of earthiness that you get in hojicha teas. Which I love. These teas from Japan are traditionally considered a lower grade, and because of that, they're actually quite affordable. I love hojicha, and I think it's very forgiving as well. So this tea is something that you can enjoy all year round, again, hot or cold. Finally, moving on to our last brew method today, we have another amazing Hario product. This is the Simply Glass Tea Brewer. It comes in 2 pieces. So we have the glass bottom carafe and a BPA-free plastic lid, which also acts as a filter to prevent the tea leaves from going into your cup. This is essential when you're brewing with loose teas. And loose teas, I believe, are typically higher quality than your bagged grocery store teas. So Again, we're going to be using the exact same ratio, 80:1. Place the vessel onto our scale, and let's weigh out 2 grams of tea. And we have our hot water, again, sitting at 85 Celsius. And we're doing a very quick steep for 30 seconds. So tear the scale and I start my timer. And we're going to add 160 grams of the hot water. Make sure all the tea leaves are saturated. Nailed it, 160 grams exactly. We place the lid onto our vessel. We wait for 10 more seconds, and then we can enjoy a delicious cup of tea. So we're at 30 seconds, and as you can see, it's very easy to decant, and all of the tea leaves are going to remain in the vessel and not in the cup. Cheers. Delicious. Thanks everyone for tuning in today and hanging out to brew some tea with me. I hope that these 3 different methods of brewing tea have helped you to inspire you to make tea at home all year round. Tea, again, is something that we are very passionate about here at 8 Ounce. If you visit our retail website and go to the coffee and tea section and the subsection of tea and chocolate, you will see the 3 tea partners that we work with. These are 3 incredible tea merchants who you can find a vast array of teas from. I hope that you will find some amazing tea as well as tea brewing accessories on our site to help you along the way in brewing amazing tea at home. Thanks again for tuning in. Cheers.